There's this aching in my bones, this hope, this wish, this yearning that every meal could be meaningful. And maybe it can be. Should be. It's impossible that a bite of bread and a sip of wine could satisfy a hunger in the soul. But somehow it does. Like when you go on a roller coaster and you feel a little queasy after, and you're trying to calm your stomach, and you don't really feel like food at all, but it turns out a little bit of something, a little sip of something, can usually cure the ill. On the roller coaster we call life, so many of us are uneasy, queasy. So maybe this small bit of cosmically broken body will help heal this body, too often broken. On our collective body, too often broken. There's an aching in my bones, this wish, this hope, this yearning that every meal could be meaningful. And maybe it can be. By God.
Communion can often feel like an epitome of that sort of example of a piece of the liturgy that we do because we do it and we have no idea why we do it. I mean, maybe not. Maybe the Eucharistic prayer and everything we do around the table tells everything we need to know about communion. But I think sometimes it could just feel like, a drive-through, especially when we do a drive-through Wise, people come up and they get it and they go back to their seat. But why?
Yeah. Well, communion practice as it stands today has really been a practice of attrition. We know from the Didache that the first communion practice was a full meal, and that they would gather up the leftovers for people who had to work on the Sabbath and then take it to them. And it was a full kind of whole love feast sort of thing. And as folks started to abuse the meal, they would hoard food, or they would take more than they were supposed to, or they would get intoxicated at the meal. They started to pare it down into just bread and wine, because those were the essential elements recorded in the Last Supper pieces. So,
in like 2 Corinthians and
and in Paul's original practices. So we have a meal of attrition now that we forget about. And it doesn't matter if you kneel or if you take it standing. Those are all local practices, adiaphora. I think the point, though, is that this is one of the places that Luther was sure God was showing up. And that's why it's the practice every Sunday in the majority of congregations that identify as Lutheran.
Right. And when he pared down the sacraments to just 2, although confession is its own thing, and I feel like we got to talk about that at some point.
Confession should be a sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
I think confession is very powerful, and a lot of us in the Protestant church have never experienced it. By the way, we're having great background noise. I couldn't have set this up better in a
this is a great communion
it's
one.
It's a perfect.
Yeah. It's a apple galette made lovingly by Tuhina.
Yeah, it's so good, and it's holy,
It's
and
fantastic.
in its own way, and
yeah,
I
but the
struggle
cream
with.
didn't turn out the way it needed to.
Well,
I like the cream. It's like a clotted cream. It's British. It's good.
I know, but it wasn't supposed to be clotted. It was supposed to be whipped.
How dare you use that word with her? She's not British.
Clotted?
But right, like we're having something that was lovingly made, and that tastes so good and it connects us around this table. And this, done right, can have echoes of the Last Supper. Communion is not the only place where this happens,
Right.
but it is a very specific and intentional place where it happens.
Every meal can be sacramental or sacred, if not a sacrament.
Well, in thinking about major religious traditions around the world that are not Abrahamic, also have gatherings around food.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
food and water. I mean, these are the
Well, I mean, like we're
elements.
called to feed and bathe people, and I think like those are the two most elemental things that we need to stay alive.
Absolutely. One of the beautiful practices that I've seen around communion are the ones where somebody in the congregation has made the bread. And it doesn't have to be a huge or expensive loaf. And Lord knows it shouldn't be sourdough because that takes forever. Though if you do have a good sourdough, good job. But this idea that they make the bread because it's part of the sacramental gift that they're giving over. And then you have local wine, or even wine from somebody in the congregation who made it. The more localized the gifts, the more true to communion it is.
So I was the sacristan at my seminary's chapel my second year. And, well, co-sacristan. I was also co-sacristan with the lovely Reverend Dr. Krista Compton. Well, now Bishop Compton.
Bishop Compton.
Yeah. Not like I'm dropping names, but here we are.
Name drop.
Anyway, we were co-sacristans our second year of seminary. And we decided that year, like, we should have homemade bread. So I suckered my spouse into making it for us every week.
Yes. Good.
But then he was also a baker emeritus of our graduating class and listed in our graduation bulletin
Well, and
as baker emeritus.
what a great gift for Carl, right? You know, and think about that. Let's imagine the person who doesn't think that they have any gifts that they can give. They don't have time to volunteer. They're not really tech savvy or something. Though Carl is super tech savvy. That's not it. But you know what I mean? It's this idea that this is a place where somebody can give something, you know, and it reflects the ancient practice the best. And then if you bless some of the sacrament to go out to other people, or let's imagine that at the communion table, you also collect other food to then send out, and you do that every week.
So at my first call, we did that. We had a basket that you would put food in, that as you were receiving as you were being fed by the bread of life, that you were also giving food to feed others, because we had that very tied into our communion practice.
And that table where we're having communion is beyond an ordinary table. And so it's not just us who are communing. It's all the saints. And right, all those who have come before. And so it's packed every time we do it. It's very mystical.
Yeah, absolutely mystical. Yeah.
Well, I think even the most basic elemental things in our lives, like bathing and feeding people, are very mystical. We just forget how mystical it is to, help one another stay alive.
Yeah, I think this is an Augustine of Hippo story, but I could be wrong, where when he's beginning to convert and learn more about the liturgy, about Christianity and theology, he's like trying to comprehend how the bread could be what we say that the bread is. And so he walks into a space and he sees the bread being held up. And he thinks, I've seen that bread on my kitchen room table. As a way of saying, how could it be anything extraordinary? When actually that's proving the point.
Right.
That actually, that's why it's so extraordinary. Because it is that bread on your table.
Yep. Yeah, it's the extraordinary found in the ordinary.
I can't help but think of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
As one does, of course.
At the very, at the end when they...
Indeed, let it go. That's my Sean Connery.
But when they're choosing the chalice and
Yeah.
A cup of a carpenter.
yes, the cup of a carpenter.
Listen, because before that, he's like, the other guy says, "Oh, this cup is
And
truly
it's
the cup of
gold
the
and
King of
King
Kings."
of
Jewel.
Kings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And well, he chose poorly.
He chose poorly. So good. God, what a movie.
And then for Indy to say, "No, this is the cup of a carpenter."
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it? You must choose. But choose wisely. For as the true grail will bring you life, the false grail will take it from you.
Because the
You
first guy
chose.
can't even choose it. He's like, "Oh, Fräulein, do it for me. I can't even." But then when he sees it, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the Jesus that I know, or that has always been talked about. That's the theology of glory right
Yep.
there."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever I talk about theology of glory and the theology of the cross, as much as I despise Indiana Jones, I always bring up the Last Crusade of like, this is the way to explain it.
There's definitely mixed emotions there.
I feel like we're going to have to talk offline about that.
That's his name, Henry Jones Jr.
Junior. We named the dog Indiana.
You were named after the dog. One of the things, though, that I think you're saying and pointing out with this, which I think is just true, it's the meal is plain humility in action, right? It's just a piece of bread, and yet it sustains you. It's just a sip of wine, and yet it lives you live by it,
It's
It's
just
the cup of the covenant.
right?
It's just a meal, and yet it transforms you.
Yeah, it's just a meal, and yet it's every meal. All the meals. Yeah, communion, when done with intention and thought, is beautiful. And even when not done with intention and thought, is still beautiful because it's not dependent on the person receiving or the person giving. The act itself is a moment of beauty.
It
But
can just get cloudy
it's fun to realize it, though. It's beautiful
to see it,
Yeah.
to get a glimpse.
I think I was part of a congregation where we only did communion once a month. And it made me realize I was starving. I was starving
Right.
because I had become so accustomed to having it once a week. But the deaconesses, like, they were ready. And like folks were ready to commune.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
What a weird way we got to once a month, right? Which is that it was often there weren't enough pastors,
Circuit preachers, yeah.
and so they're riding around on their horse. They can only get to you once a month.
And then people got mad when it came back every week because it made the liturgy longer. Isn't it funny that grace elongates something that we were used to being brief on, and we're mad about it?
I also think we have so much to learn from the Quakers. I
For
think
real.
because there's something about silence I think like I love those silent moments after communion
Yes.
where it's this realization of that you're not alone. It's the communion of the saints, that this is the foretaste of the feast to come.
Mm-hmm.
This very plain bread and this very plain wine that came from grapes.
Mm-hmm.
These quotidian daily things are connecting us to the greater cosmos.
Yeah.
Right.
Grace, grapes in time. It's wheat in time.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that make these moments of grace. And even when you're doing the words of institution, we need to stop rushing them.
I know it. Take your time. What I say though is what I got from Pastor Lori Rugi Jones, having been anointed by someone he loved very much, and about to be betrayed by someone he loved very much, our Lord Jesus took bread.
Mm-hmm.
Because then at least we get that unnamed woman in Mark, who Jesus said after she anoints him that whenever the good news is proclaimed, what she has done will be told in memory of her, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, to that point, I mean, there's fluidity there. there's ways that you can maneuver in this. Just don't read the words and try to get through it, obviously.
Or
It's
don't
never
say them
that.
rote and try to get through like a bedtime story that you're waiting until the end so the kid can fall asleep. Tell the story.
Tell the story like you're just experiencing it for the first time.
And experiencing how radical and how awe-inducing it is.
A story from John's Gospel. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man, blind since birth. His disciples said to him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this guy or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus said, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's glory might be revealed through him. We must work the works of the one who sent me while it's day. Night is coming when no one can work." As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. And when he said this, he spit on the ground, mixed mud with his saliva, and spread it over the man's eyes, saying, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam." That means sent. And he went and he washed and he came back able to see. Now his neighbors and those who had known him before as a beggar began to ask, "Isn't that the guy who used to sit and beg?" And some were saying, "Yeah, it's him." Others are saying, No, it's someone like him." But he kept saying, "I am the man." And they said, "Well, how are your eyes opened?" He said, the man called Jesus. He mixed mud, spread it over my eyes, told me go to Siloam and wash, and I went and I washed, and y'all, I received my sight. And they said, "Where is he?" And he said, "I don't know." Well, they brought to the religious authorities, the Pharisees, the man who had been born blind. Now, it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened the eyes. And the Pharisees began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, now I see." And some of the Pharisees said, "This man isn't from God because he doesn't observe the Sabbath." Others are saying, "How could a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. And they said to the man who had been born blind, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." And he said, "He's a prophet." Now, the religious authorities didn't believe the man had been born blind and had received his sight until they spoke to the parents of the man who had received his sight. And they said to him, Is that your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" And his parents said, we know that he is our son and that he was born blind, but we don't know how it is that he received his sight, nor do we know who opened his eyes. You can ask him. He's of age. He can speak for himself." Now, the parents said this because they were afraid of the religious authorities, because the authorities had already decided that anyone who proclaimed Jesus as the Messiah would be driven out of the synagogue. So for this reason, his parents said, "He's of age, ask him." So for a second time, they brought the man who had been born blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know this man is a sinner." And the man who had received his sight said, I don't know whether he's a sinner. One thing I do know, I was blind. Now I see. And the authorities said, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" And the man said, I've already told you this before, but you wouldn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also wish to become his disciples? And they reviled him, saying, you're his disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses. But as for this man, we don't know where he comes from. And the man who had received his sight said, here's an astonishing thing. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but God listens to the one who worships God and obeys God's will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If he weren't from God, he could do nothing. And the religious authorities said to him, you were born entirely in sin, and you're trying to teach us? And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out. And when he found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Humanity, Ben Adam? And the man said, and who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe. And Jesus said, you've seen him. The one who is speaking with you is he. And the man fell to his knees and said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. Jesus said, I came into this world for judgment, so that those who don't see may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees who were near him heard this and said, well, surely we're not blind, are we? And Jesus said, if you were blind, you wouldn't have sin. But now that you say, we see, your sin remains.
It would not be made out of gold.
That's the cup of a carpenter. There's only one way to find out.
You have chosen wisely.
Today's worship is brought to you by the Anam Cara community, one of the constellation of offerings by this new digital mission start of the North Carolina Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, visit anamcaracommunity.org. And if you trust that this work and content are meaningful for you, please give on our website under the Give tab. We know God blesses us in beautiful and precarious times. Thank you for being you. And thank you for being here.